Hello, we've got people joining. We're excited for today's webinar. Hope everyone's got a great Tuesday going. Today, we're here to talk about some tactical tips and best practices on how marketers can navigate economic uncertainty. I'm your moderator, Erin Martin, the VP of Marketing at NetCertive, and I'm very excited to be joined by Gabby Powers, who's the Director of Marketing for Rockbox Fitness and Beam Light Sauna, and Taylor Hullock-Smith, who's the VP of Marketing for the Lash Lounge. So thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Of course, happy to be here.
Very excited.
And just a few housekeeping items for you guys. This is a live webinar, so feel free to throw any questions in the QA window. We're going to try to keep the webinar around 45 minutes so that you guys can have a bathroom break before the next meeting. And then, as always, we'll send out the deck and the recording afterwards for reference as well. So before we get started, just a quick note about NetCertive. We help franchise and multi-location brands run better localized digital marketing programs at both the corporate and franchisee level. We have over 100 multi-location brand partners, and we absolutely love what we do. Some of you guys might have heard me say this before, but I get to spend my days marketing to a bunch of marketers about marketing, and it's freaking awesome. So if you want to geek out on digital marketing at any point, just definitely hit us up. And I want to kick off today's webinar by just saying that I'm not an economist, but I do know that the only constant is change, and that anytime there's disruption, there is also an opportunity to get ahead. So I'm excited to talk to Gabby and Taylor about ways that marketers can maintain visibility and accelerate revenue growth during uncertain times. So just to dive in and I think provide some context, Taylor and Gabby, what are your guys' brands currently seeing as challenges and trends as it relates to the current economic climate? And maybe Taylor, you could kick us off.
Sure, absolutely. So the Lash Lounge is in a kind of unique position in that we started franchising in 2009, which, as everyone remembers or tries to forget, was right smack dab in the middle of the Great Recession. And luckily, because of the strength of our model and our brand, we persevered. So when COVID came along and when this, I don't know what we're calling it right now, threat of a recession, baby recession is kind of knocking on our doorsteps, we at least know that we have history to say that we can weather any storm. And that's continued to be the truth following COVID and into this year. So we're in a unique, lucky position right now. I want to knock on wood. But that doesn't mean we have been immune to economic changes. For instance, looking at overall web traffic, beginning in March, we've seen a steady decline. And August was the first month where we're only slightly seeing an uptick. And I think more frustrating is beginning in the summer when we started to look at year-over-year numbers, we were seeing we were down, which is scary. And I think it's been super upsetting and frustrating that it's been really difficult to determine a single culprit because there's so many factors at play. Is it the baby recession that could be starting? Is it increased competition after the pandemic? Is it because the vaccines were released in May, June last year, and there was a confidence in returning to the retail environment? We haven't been able to nail that down. So we're trying to do the best we can with the information we had. For our brand in particular, taking all of that into account, what we focus on is lead generation, getting in for their people in for their first full set of lashes. And that, luckily for us, has been more or less steady. So instead of worrying about what's not going right, we've kind of shifted gears to focusing on the things we can control, which is the sales conversion of that lead.
Yeah, that's great. And Gabby, how about you guys? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So coming out of COVID, obviously with fitness, that was not the best time to be in a fitness concept. But actually for us, we found that we were able to adapt really easily during that, and that the community that we offered in our studios was a huge part of why people came back very quickly. So, we weathered COVID. We felt that was super strong, had great marketing, had great lead generation, and then seeing more fluctuations recently, similar to Taylor, as far as, not even just the number of leads, but where they're coming from. So looking at ways to figure out, okay, everything was in Facebook and Instagram before. With those fluctuations, maybe that's not where we need to be with a primary part of our budget, or maybe it is, but how can we tailor that content, tailor that targeting to better effectively serve during these times when people may be looking at different fitness concepts with a new light with that economic challenge coming up. So similar to Taylor, seeing fluctuations, but having to be able to pinpoint the causes rather than just saying, okay, it changed everything. Let's find the small things that we can alter that can still help these traditional things that we've always done be more effective going into the next year.
Yeah. And I know that one trend we're seeing too is that there's still some strong consumer spending, but then also some signals of lower consumer confidence, just in terms of value seeking behaviors during economic uncertainty is kind of on the rise. Like I know that searches for things that are just related to, affordable travel or free of charge or buy one, get one, there's kind of just being a little more price conscious and looking for those deals and value and shifting priorities towards value. So with that, whether your brand is recession proof or not, it's really important to stay agile and focused on value. And so for you guys, in your experience, what are some examples of ways that marketing can kind of help add value and help future proof?
Do you want to start, Gabby, since I started last time?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at, it's great you mentioned value, Erin. I think for us, we're not seeing value come across more in a promotion or a price decrease, but more so adding value into our current options. So rather than decreasing price, we're trying to figure out how, and we have figured out great ways to add additional value to our memberships to help our members and serve them, not just in fitness, but also nutrition accountability and also community in our studios to help them reach their goals faster. So I think for us, we're really building in additional value into our memberships rather than dropping prices, because fitness, the prices are really consistent across the board, but how can we continue to sell that not only in our lead generation, in our ad copy or in a print ad, how can we have that come across, but then also during that sales pitch, having it reflect that same talk track, that same language to really kind of complete that consumer's journey. So I think for us, it's more so adding additional assets or value that isn't a huge lift on our owners or on our sales staff at the studio, but helping our members get further along in their journeys is kind of where we're seeing the most success.
I love that. That is not an easy thing to do. You said it so eloquently, Gabby, but that's a huge mindset shift. That's awesome for you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely, oh, sorry, Taylor.
No, go ahead.
It's definitely a way for us to help add a differentiator or competitive advantage to our memberships when we're selling them in studio. So it's not so much fitness about the classes. People can put on great fitness classes. We put on awesome ones at Rockbox, but it's more about that entire member experience and kind of helping to amplify them in their wellness journey.
Well said. I think for us, when you think of value, you immediately think of discounting. For us, we're intentionally a luxury premier brand. So it wouldn't occur to us to lower our prices because that would be cheapening our experience. Instead, I think we need to focus on manifesting one of the primary components of our value proposition, which is care. And that can come to life in many ways, but it's making sure that from a quality standpoint, our service is always on point. From a guest care standpoint, we're always doing our best. So that can be the little things like standing up and saying hello by name when someone walks into the door, taking care to offer the different amenities while they're in the waiting area, offering them a blanket during their service, a bolster, taking time to walk the guest through the consultation or explaining proper aftercare routines. So it's not taking for granted the guest that is chosen to entrust the Lash Lounge with their business and their membership. It's really coming up with creative ways to demonstrate that.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, the focus on value isn't just discounting. I've also heard you're trying to add value, but I think another way to do it is also just looking at either your product or service offering and those that aren't performing. So focusing on the stuff that is working well and being able to cut back and drive more value through that, and just thinking deeply about how to keep customers happy, which a big piece of that we're all kind of struggling with is staff, just recruiting and retaining staff and keeping those service levels really high. And so I'm just curious from your guys' perspective, what tips that you guys have seen or are using to help with recruiting and retaining staff right now?
You got it, Taylor.
Okay, I guess we'll alternate. That works out. So if I said I knew all the answer here, I'd be lying. I think for us, we started with a needs assessment, and first and foremost, we needed to define our team member value proposition, or why should someone want to work at the Lash Lounge. And then we needed to find a home base to share that. So for us, it was building out a careers page. It was adding that information to our franchisees' careers portal where their job listings were, and then shooting a video to bring all the stuff we had written down to life through the mouths of our actual stylists. And that was called Day in the Life of a Lash Lounge Stylist. Now we're cutting that long form video up to enter into our national lead gen focused recruitment campaign. And then we've honestly been running that this year. And while we've been able to drive the cost of an applicant down, the need is still persisting where all of our owners still need to hire. So next year, we're kind of reevaluating our strategy and thinking, hey, maybe we need to pursue more of a brand awareness play or employment brand awareness play as establishing ourselves as kind of the preeminent place to work for stylists. Now that's kind of scary, especially when we're in charge of communicating to franchisees, because that means all of our eggs or our resources won't be in the lead gen basket. But from other campaigns that we've run, we know that marketing at different stages of the funnel, whether that be to the consumer or whether that be to the employee, it pays dividends in the long run because they work together. So we're hoping that by investing in that type of messaging and brand awareness messaging, it's in effect going to drive leads.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I literally just wrote that down as something for us to look into. So thank you for chat, Taylor. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
And how about you, Gabby?
I definitely think there's a lot that we can do here on this front to optimize the process. I think for us, we've actually taken this more on the operations side and looking at ways to maximize onboarding and make that process as clean and as simple as possible. So on the marketing side, allowing assets to be created that really make that training process really clean for our studio owners and staff members to make sure that they know what's expected. They're able to execute on that really quickly. So that's more how we've kind of accomplished that. But I absolutely think Taylor is right that making that more attainable, having that hero journey be kind of promoted through a video asset or other kind of collateral that really shows the value of being an employee is huge, to be able to speak to this new generation of workers that really does want to be a value-based organization. They really care what they're doing and they want to make sure they're making a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I saw last week was that 2022 franchisee inflation survey that came out that said that approximately 90% of franchisees witnessed a moderate to substantial inflation impact on their business. I think the biggest things they cited were the rising fuel prices, the increase in labor costs, and inventory costs were the big sources of that. So just as, you know, that's like one piece that I know is heavily felt when it comes to the hiring and retaining. So I'm curious how you guys are doing on the communication side of things then with your franchisees, like as you roll out these programs and try to educate and help them through this tough time. Just how important is that top-down communication when it comes to the franchise system and all of your stakeholders? And what tactics have you guys been using to just stay in constant contact and educate them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have our summit coming up. It's just a large event that we have with our entire network. So that's going to be a huge way for us to be able to add value in person to our franchisees since they are across the country. But more on the day-to-day side, having newsletters go out to our network is a huge thing for us to have more timely updates, but then always being available for jump on calls. We actually have an internal agency at our company as well. So on the advertising side and marketing side, having dashboards to report, so have the communication be really clear as far as metrics and performance, but then also being able to back that up with follow-ups to be able to add value and color where the people who are actually in the campaigns and working them can kind of be. So I think having always on-time dashboard systems that can have those metrics be very clean, you know, it's right or wrong, you're on track or off track, but then also being able to follow up with value has been huge for us and building up that rapport for us as an agency internally, but then also allowing our franchisees to understand that lead generation data, which does impact their sales at the end of the month, their member retention and all of that as well.
I think that's so smart. Communication is essential in a franchise system, and it's all built on their franchise systems are successful when they're built on trust. And in order to gain trust, you have to communicate. So I love how Gabby was talking about specifically the dashboards that she has. In order for you to establish trust, you need to be transparent, and franchisees need to feel that they have information in front of them that's going to allow them to be successful and run their businesses. I think in the economic challenges we've been facing lately, it's a big part of our job for us as leaders is to assess the economic, competitive, and technological environments and anticipate barriers and identify opportunities and adjust accordingly, but also to have the, I guess, emotional intelligence to resist the urge to make rash decisions based on those things. Because as I said earlier, it's not an immediate thing where we can identify what the culprit or what the trigger is for these effects we're seeing in the world. So we need to see the bigger picture. So when I was saying earlier, our site traffic is down this year in a vacuum, that's a red flag. But since our lead count is steady, instead of panicking, what are other levers we have at our disposal to increase brand awareness? Some of that might be that employment brand awareness marketing that I was talking about. Maybe it's PR. Maybe it is optimizing the site for search, SEO, and lead capture, doing conversion rate optimization testing. So I think we just really need to think very closely about when is the appropriate time to message franchisees, asking them to think about something that could potentially be scary before we have determined that it is something they should be scared of, because there's nothing worse than injecting fear when we haven't developed a culprit and then also a solution.
Yes, which I think goes back to what you're saying about focusing on what's working and what to lean into and focus on and spend your time on. One thing that just came to mind for me too, in terms of the communication piece that Taylor, you had said about just, content and videos. I think that's also one really quick, easy way to get in front of franchisees with different communications and just living in the B2B world where I live. I think that's one communication tactic that's heavily used is like these quick videos, almost like Marco Polo or like Snapchat for business. That can be translated, and I think has worked really well with communicating with franchisees, is making, instead of like a huge piece of content to educate them or, a really lengthy email newsletter that's going to get lost, just like a quick 30-second video, and they can pick something up and know what to focus on.
That's so smart. For us, we do kind of layered communication. So we set expectations for regular communication, and it's large and small throughout the year. So we've got quarterly all hands calls where all the franchisees and their managers, if they want, can come on. They kind of give the state of the industry update, state of the business update. But then we also have quarterly newsletters that are kind of staggered that hit on the biggest updates from each department. But then throughout the year, we know we're going to need to communicate in real time, especially if something is happening in the larger economic climate. We have forums that we can post, kind of like a blog or an RSS feed. This is a big announcement. This is a big campaign that's coming up. Here's a big website update, et cetera. And I love what you were saying, Erin, about kind of when you are the people that are responsible for delivering this information to franchisees, thinking about different learning styles. Some people respond to written words, some people respond to video. Sometimes it makes sense to layer both if it's a really big update. Always understanding that I think this is ubiquitous across franchise, but people don't read. So trying to figure out the best way to effectively communicate your message.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, we just kind of touched on recruiting, which reminds me that marketers get pressures from so many different arenas as today. I think there's more tax on us to drive revenue than ever before. We're in charge of so many different functions, whether it's Fran Dev, consumer marketing, operations, helping influence CX. And so I'm curious from your guys' perspective, what are some examples of ways to work smarter, not just harder, for those better business outcomes with everything that we have on our plates today? And I forget who's up first in our back and forth.
Can't remember either.
I can jump in really quick.
Sounds good.
I think for us on our end, it's kind of been a twofold system, really folding into our current customers and our current members. So on one end, on the content piece is user generated content, allowing them to speak to their own fitness results, their transformations, whether it's physical or mental, or just what they post about why they love our brand. Being able to share that takes the time off of our team to have content that day that's unique and different, but then also allows us to really promote our members and their stories, since that is our goal as a business, is to be able to amplify people in their fitness journey. So I think that's a huge part of us. They're making content for us. How can we utilize that? And then on the other end of having those members in our studio already, they're a captive audience for us. So being able to have them come in and do additional programming, additional upsells potentially, and then also having referrals come from them to have people in that community referring others in their community. That's been allowing us to, when lead flow may be shorter or a little bit less in a month or a week, having them have those leads in other capacities. So really focusing in on those members who already love us and helping them teach their friends, their family, their coworkers why they should love Dropbox as well.
I love that. It's like you're taking a look at your current assets and then squeezing them for as much value as you can pull out of it. It's super smart.
Yeah.
I think for us, it's kind of twofold. So it's taking a look at our heavy hitting existing digital properties where we are acquiring most of our leads and allowing people to book online, for instance. So on our site, making sure that we are optimizing our content for search engines. So whether that's existing content, looking at, top volume for queries that relate to our business, and also adding new content that's going to capture those queries as well. So that's kind of an always on thing. You're never done there. And then also taking a look at one of our biggest referrers, which is our Google business profiles across our system, our Yelp profiles, for instance, and figuring out, hey, have we adequately optimized these properties? Are there things we can be doing to add localization to these listings? Can we add more photos? Can we optimize the FAQs? Can we add more service descriptions, et cetera? What have we not done yet that can further amplify this heavy refer? And then I think also just continuing to reinforce to franchisees that keep doing what we have told you works, but reinvigorate yourself to the process. So simple things like asking for reviews for happy guests in your salon. It's so easy. So easy. What do you got to lose? Nothing. Only thing people can say is no.
Yeah.
Continuing to put great local content out onto your socials, into your emails. And then I think this is kind of counterintuitive, but continue to spend as well. So we know that most of our leads are coming through digital advertising, which is the same for a lot of franchise businesses. Don't pull back that spend right now, because after COVID, especially, the environment is getting more competitive again. So we're spending maybe a little bit more on CPMs and CPCs, but you have to be present in order to earn the leads. So if you have those ads running, rely upon your franchisor or your agency, whoever's responsible for this, to continue seeing how they can squeeze the most out of their advertising. Are there new media strategies that you can try? For instance, on Facebook, we just switched from landing page focused campaigns to lead form campaigns, and that's been a game changer. It didn't cost us, much more money. It's just a different approach. Can we test new creative? Can we introduce new creative? Just kind of looking at what's possible within the framework that we've already known to be successful, and finding opportunities to sweeten the pot.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is one thing that's been proven historically and is always an opportunity, is that if you can increase spend during a recession, you're going to have a greater impact than if you increased it at normal times. Just because everyone else, competitors are pulling back. And so it's a big opportunity to lean in and win some market share. And I think there was a Nielsen study that recently came out that said that brand building as well also impacts sales in a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's not just, the immediate lead generation campaigns that you need to keep the lights on with, but it's that brand awareness as well, because that's going to drive sales down the line. You know, if someone's not even aware of your product, then they're not going to be able to buy it. So there's kind of those two sides of trying to keep the lights on, that matters a lot in being able to get ahead.
Which is so counterintuitive, but
Yes.
I love that the numbers prove it. It makes our lives so much easier. We know this as marketers. So it's great to
Yes.
see that reflected.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Taylor mentioned SEO earlier. It's been a huge thing for us in that brand awareness that can become lead generation very quickly. So kind of getting closer to brand awareness, but still not quite there. So building that up so that we can build up brand awareness after that, I think is huge for us. Our website's been a huge impact for us recently for organic leads coming in, whether they're seeing our campaigns on Facebook because we are spending at high levels and then coming in, or they're searching for concept. I think it's been a huge investment for us. It's really been paying dividends ever since.
I love that. And so tell me a little bit more just about that strategy. Is that an initiative that you kicked off like 2 years ago that you're now seeing some dividends? Was it last year? Like, how did you guys kind of go about that general project and initiative?
Yeah, so we've been looking about the beginning of 2022 is when we really started really hard on SEO. So we have always had a blog page. That additional value add of that content's always been huge for our brand. But optimizing it for SEO, I think, was something that we did more on the back burner. But now it's really at the forefront of our content strategy. So being able to increase blog content as well as optimize our site in general, as we've grown in locations over the past year has been huge. So we're looking at just under a year at this point of really getting that strategy up and running and just seeing lead generation really skyrocket from it. And then also just impacting our Google advertising and all of that as well. It all feeds into one another. You know, it's nothing's in a silo. So being able to optimize one part, if you're not seeing amplifications in the other parts, then something's disconnected. So you got to get it connected again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, moving forward real quick, I know we touched on this in multiple different ways, but with consumer hesitancy, I know, you know, people are just a little bit more budget conscious, trying to figure some things out when it comes to purchases. So is there anything that you guys use, either in the creative or tactics or messaging that you've played with or evolved with over the years, on ways to overcome any type of consumer hesitancy that you may be seeing? I don't know, Taylor, if you want to kick us off. Yeah.
Sure. I think that we have such a cool job because our job is literally to motivate, to shift mindsets, and to inspire. And I think the key to doing that is by creating an experience that is relatable. If they can, if consumers, if guests, if leads can see themselves in your brand with lashes, with a healthy fit body, then the puzzle has been solved. And there are a million ways to do that. I can share just a couple ways that the Lash Lounge has done it over the past couple of years, but I'd love to hear from Gabby too. For instance, for us during COVID, we had to shut our salons down for a period of time. It was short and it was temporary, but as marketers, it's not like we then shut off communication with the people we value most. We had to figure out how to get them excited and to connect with our brand during a time when they didn't see some lashes on their face, that physical reminder of us. And one of the ways to do that during that time is we ran this thing called the Fresh Face Challenge. So the main core of our marketing message is to honor and celebrate your natural beauty, and lashes just accentuate that. So we had people submit photos of themselves with bare faces, and we shared that across marketing just to continue to celebrate and focus on what has always been at our core and that they could do during a time when they couldn't have lashes on their faces. And then more recently in 2022, we launched a female empowerment campaign called See Her Shine, where we're literally asking people to look deep within themselves and latch onto and celebrate what makes them them. And we've been featuring real guests and members in our marketing. So it's just been, no one can sell the brand more than the people who are impacted by it. Just as you were saying earlier, Gabby, with your heavy reliance on UGC and referrals. So those have been a couple ways that we've done it. And then my favorite, I think, of late is telling the stories of our guests, human interest stories. We had a 99-year-old guest at our Ponte Vedra salon in Florida, Miss Lucy, and we did this whole chronicling of her life story and why she looks forward to coming to get her lash refills with her daughter. And it's just feel good, wonderful content that shows that you can be beautiful at any age. And we welcome everyone into the Lash Lounge.
Oh, I love that.
I love that as well. I think that's such a great way to feature people who are already your brand ambassadors and be able to kind of amplify their own stories. That's huge.
Yes.
I definitely think for us on more of the consumer, that story side, we partnered with Right Love in Her Arms, which is a mental health awareness organization, helping with suicide prevention and awareness, as well as just overall mental health, and kind of ending that stigma. It's in a partnership for us at Rockbox for about a year now. And we just recently went through Suicide Prevention Week, which is in September, and partnered with them and was able to feature some stories of some of our staff members actually at some of our studios in New York, and kind of showing, how fitness or how Rockbox kind of intertwined with their passion for mental health, how they were affected by suicide at one point, and kind of how, their story was able to come to be more positive, more awareness, knowing that people are not alone and that your story is important. So being able to feature that more consumer facing story of just the way that Rockbox helps with mental health, that's a connection for sure. Fitness and mental health are ultimately combined, but being able to promote those stories has made our brand more human, and people love human. People don't love brands. So if your content's about your brand and your content's about why you're the best in your industry, that's not going to help you sell memberships, sell lashes. Ultimately, people want to know that you're there to help them and that they're the hero in their story. So I think our content in the last year has really revolved around how to make our staff members, our franchisees, and our members, how to promote their stories and their love of fitness, of wellness, and how that helps us sell our brand. So I think people are hesitant right now with money and with their resources, but they will not be hesitant towards a friend, or family member or someone they feel like they know, even if they don't know them. So that's where we're really pushing our strategy is how can we promote people and help promote their transformations to, value our brand and, help our brand for sure, but also help other people experience those same transformations in their own life, in those own outlets.
Yeah, and those are really good examples of just bringing stories to life that shares the value in that human way. We all buy emotionally and then probably try to justify it with some logical things. But at the end of the day, we're very emotional beings. And so I'm curious for you guys. You guys just shared some really powerful and cool campaigns that you came up with. And so what was your guys' process like for coming up with those? Just, is it internal syncs? Like, did a franchisee bring it up? Or how does some of those come about for you guys and what's your process around it? Maybe Gabby, you could kick it off based off of what you just shared.
Yeah, for sure. So that was actually Becca, our director of branding, and myself. We had actually been talking with those staff members. They were at one of our corporate trainings here, and I'm actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. So they had actually visited us, and we're just talking about their why they, do Rockbox, why fitness, why wellness, and shared that they had been impacted with mental health. And that was really a big part of their why they wanted to help others in their studios, their members. So being able to just listen. I think as marketers, we always want to act. We always want to move forward, and do things to get better. But sometimes sitting back and listening to what your consumers are already saying, your staff members are already saying, you're able to really, I can't take credit for it. That was totally Becca on catching that and making the connection, and kind of bringing that campaign to life. But as a brand, being able to use that as part of our strategy and as part of our messaging to promote a great cause, an awesome staff member, and the message that, it does get better in that capacity of mental health.
It's all about the why.
All about the why, always.
How about you guys, Taylor?
I think for our team, it's always taking a step back and listening, just like Gabby said, to our franchisees and to our guests, their feedback, and then also kind of assessing the larger cultural environment and technological environment and figuring out where that intersects with your brand story, and then figuring out how to make that intersection relevant and relatable to the consumer. So how are we going to be relevant in the cultural environment without forcing it, I think, too. So it's really putting yourself in the minds of your consumers and how we're going to intersect with their daily lives in a way that's going to make their lives easier or more poignant, I think. And that it's a science and an art at the same time. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, love that. Well, just a few more questions as we creep up on time. I know we touched about this one in a few different ways. Just some different ways to stay top of mind, stay digitally present, stay present, visible and discoverable locally. So I don't know if there's any other ideas that you guys want to throw in the hat, whether it's, enforcing the FDD or just campaign ideas or education or any other thoughts that come to mind.
I don't think I have a real complex answer to this one, but it's just making sure that you have a content strategy and a communication plan and committing to regularly delivering great quality content, and then understanding where you fare in the competitive environment, where you might be able to get by organically or for free, or whether you need to invest in advertising or public relations assistance to move you that extra mile.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think figuring out where the data shows that you're going to have the best results, but then knowing that omnipresent at the end of the day is the best way to be able to have a voice in every platform. I think for us with TikTok, that's been huge. Our demographic is, quickly becoming a large part of that platform. On the advertising side right now, doesn't make the most sense for us on a localized approach because of their targeting abilities. But on the organic side, our studios are, one, having so much fun filming those videos and making content there. Two, being able to use it on other platforms like Instagram, which are a huge, huge brand piece for us, and a huge push towards lead generation for us. But then three, once we get advertising where it makes sense there, potentially one day we'll have the content there and we'll be ready for it. So it's really just building it up slowly, knowing that it can't be the main focus right now. It's not the best platform for us, but having in the back of our mind, that plan, that brand awareness piece to be able to push towards lead generation eventually.
Yeah, nice. And I like one thing you said too, Taylor, about knowing competitors. I think there's a big difference in understanding what you want to be, but then also what you can own. If someone's out there owning, a topic or piece of content where you could spend all your time and resources and still not dent anything, then it's like, okay, well, what can you own? Where can you go after and truly own that piece of the digital market? So I love that tip that you had as well. All right, so just one last question that came in from people before we sign off. And this one, I know, Gabby, you had mentioned an internal summit, and it sounds like you guys have both done different types of summits for your stakeholders. So just curious, as you dive into event planning, which is insanity for marketers usually, if you have any good lessons learned since you're in the thick of it with your coworkers right now, or best practices or tips for people when they do those type of events.
I think for us, it's always delivering value, like I said earlier. So the trainings that we have this year are coming from, requests from franchisees, requests from staff members of trainings that they want to be able to see more, things that they want more assistance on, to be able to build on that. And then also one of our core values here, always having fun. So at the end of the day, it's a stressful event for us planning it sometimes. And then they're coming, they're traveling, they're doing everything, making sure that you interweave fun into everything that you do will allow them to ultimately leave that event. They'll have a lot of great tips, a lot of great trainings, but then ultimately they'll really enjoy our network, which I do because they're awesome. And they're a lot of fun to be around naturally. So being able to build the event around that and kind of have it intertwined into all the trainings is a huge part of it for us.
Nice. Yeah, you want someone walking away wanting to come back next year, not dreading it.
Always.
I think that's so important too, Gabby, because I think one of the things we forget about, especially as franchisors, talking to franchisees, daily, multiple franchisees, is that as a franchisee, sometimes it can feel isolating and lonely because you have your position and you're working with your staff every day, but you don't have that ability to network with other franchisees unless you're proactively reaching out. So I love that onus on having fun when you're together at a summit. I think one of the things that we learned too, and that I think is pretty common as franchisors, is we can share the components to the success and system until our face is blue. We'll repeat them a million times. And for whatever reason, we'll have that bottom 20%, that bottom 30% that just hasn't absorbed that information. So instead of bringing people together and have it be just a franchisor-led content presentation, how do we incorporate the franchisees into that? Whether it's like Gabby said, inquiring what topics you'd like to be covered, but also how do we bring franchisees up on stage to present? How do we put franchisees in a room? Maybe perhaps it's a round table, perhaps it's just a networking session. How do we get them talking? Because it's that shared experience and that communication that's going to lead to the next best idea, or finally that absorption of that principle that we're blue in the face trying to communicate.
You always want the cool uncle to be able to share it. Besides,
yes.
Always the cool
I love
uncle.
that.
Yeah, and I think it was that same inflation report that said that franchisees said that sharing the best practices with each other was what they valued most in being part of a franchise system. So it's huge. All right, well, we're at time. And so thank you, ladies, so much for the time and insights and wisdom. It was such a great conversation. And thank you to everyone who joined. I shared a few stats with you guys throughout the webinar. So we actually have those in the appendix here that I will share in the follow-up. So you'll get the deck and the recording for easy access. And like I said, we're a bunch of marketing geeks over here. So if you want to chat digital marketing, then hit us up. And we hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And thanks again for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Erin.
Thanks, ladies. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.